Thank you, Chairman Himes, for hosting this hearing, and thank you to all of our witnesses for sharing your expertise. During our last committee hearing, I dug into some misleading economic narratives that tend to inform major policy decisions. And this is because I believe it's very important that we diagnose these problems correctly, because if we tell a story that is primarily about something like the skills gap, we are saying that policy's primary role is fostering skill development as opposed to reining in corporate power and boosting the power that workers have in our economy. Now, in that hearing, Dr. Spriggs testified that the United States automated our manufacturing sector in response to Japanese competition, but we kept the same number of workers for almost 20 years. As productivity went through the roof, the UAW was also able to negotiate higher wages. Now, Dr. Brody, would you say that unionized workers in highly automatable industries have higher employment stability?
Yes.
Now, would you also say that these same workers have a reduced risk of low earnings?
Yes.
So you would agree that it is essential for unions to negotiate the transition for workers as industries automate?
Yes.
Thank you. As mentioned in our previous hearing, Germany has had nearly 5 times as many robots per worker than we do, and they have had very different labor market outcomes. It is clear that the experience of automation is different for workers that are unionized versus those that are not. Those that are able to exercise their collective bargaining rights are better able to negotiate the transition in automation. But I want to shift now to discussing something that is often not talked about, but is a byproduct of technological innovation in the workplace, and that is workplace surveillance. Technology is increasingly exploited by employers to pay workers less, ignore worker protections, and undermine bargaining ability, which ultimately increases economic inequality and distorts economic growth. Dr. Acemoglu, are workers likely to know all of the ways in which they are surveilled, and what mechanisms presently exist for them to push back on that?
There is no way that at the moment they can know all of the ways in which they are surveyed, because a lot of it depends on data that's very non-transparent. And I think at the moment there is not much that workers can do. Unionization could partially help, but obviously new unions are not forthcoming in most establishments at the moment.
So to clarify, workers are currently being surveilled without their full knowledge in their own workplaces?
To some extent, yes.
I want to demonstrate how insidious this can get. Service jobs use technologies like Dayforce to calculate wages for paychecks in real time and turn away workers from scheduled shifts when sales are down. This unpredictable scheduling makes it hard for workers to earn a reliable wage and even enables employer wage theft, which is one of the largest forms of theft in the United States. But it does not stop there. They use technology to make hiring and firing decisions as well. These algorithms designed to favor the firm give employers more power and employees less control at work. So Dr. Acemoglu, do you believe that the increased incidents of workplace surveillance are likely to exacerbate existing economic disparities?
Absolutely, yes, because most of the time that type of surveillance is directed at low education workers in service jobs.
And so what we're really seeing is how technology is being harnessed to really make some of the existing inequities in our workplaces worse. If, for example, when I worked back at my restaurant, when I worked at the restaurant, you could often see forms of employer retaliation or employer inconsistencies, I shall say, where you could have 5 full shifts one week and you're expected to clear your entire calendar, and you could have 2 shifts the next week, but you still need to pay your rent at the end of the month. So we're seeing how these areas of surveillance can exacerbate some of these existing inequalities. Are there any other areas that you would point to?
I think if you look at a lot of the transport sector delivery jobs, there's a lot of surveillance, and it's going to increase with the amount of data. And as you pointed out, it's partly or largely an issue of corporate power. So one way of balancing how we use data in a way that's more productive is actually also balancing how much protection workers have.
Thank you very much. I yield back.